Hey folks, and welcome to Arcane Assist. This week it's myself, Evan, with Craig back to show off a really cool Legion list, and I have myself some KHADOR. So, Craig, why don't you go ahead with your awesome Thags2 list?
All right, so like Evan said, I am playing Thagrosh2, or Thagrosh the Messiah. My list consists of Thagrosh with a battle group of an Archangel, 2 Rakes, a Seraph, Typhon, 2 Harriers, 2 Sorceress and Hellions, a Forsaken, a Spell Martyr, and a unit of Feral Valkyries.
So what exactly are the tools in this list supposed to do, and what's the goal or the game plan of the list?
So the list is essentially a combined arms list. The Archangel and Typhon are both strong gun threats, especially with the Archangel's new Animus in the latest round of CID changes, that will eventually transition into the mid and end game into a credible melee threat backed up by Manifest Destiny.
All right, makes sense. Cool. Kind of like some a classic. What was it? It was Abbey 2 with a bunch of Ravagors. So you got like this awesome shooting game in the early game that turned into a just strength filled. Yeah, she did a lot to some Ravagors.
One other thing is that Thagrosh brings an armor buff that can be applied to beasts to the list, and the Archangel picked up a point of armor in the changes before the last set of changes. So essentially he becomes 1121, which is a lot more stout of a stat line than one would think.
Especially with several shield guards and sack pawn.
Correct. Those are sort of a tech piece for like things like Crucible Guard or anybody who has like grievous wounds on a shot so they don't turn off Typhon's offensive tech.
Cool. All right, so my list. I am playing Vlad1 in Winter Guard Command. It's a very classic KHADOR list that's had a couple of updates, not so recently, but in the last little bit. I think a lot of this came out of the Man of War CID, but here we are. So our battle group is 2 Marauders and a Spriggan. The Spriggan is great, solves a lot of problems Winter Guard Command had with stealth. So the flares from the Spriggan are actually great. I think a lot of KHADOR players underestimate this particular piece, especially in Vlad1. We're going to show off a little bit of the tech that it can have today, or at the very least talk about it. We also have Kovnik, Jozef, Grigorovich, pretty staple solo in this particular theme. We've got a Widowmaker Marksman, as well as 2 Rifle Corps men with 3 rockets each, a Winter Guard Infantry men with the Officer and Standard, as well as a Mortar and a Field Gun crew for free, and our Merc pick is going to be Lady Iana and Master Holt with their friend Valachev to throw some magic weapons into the theme in case I need them into certain matchups, as well as the great addition of Kiss of Lilith, which is always pretty good because +2 damage will never hurt anyone except your opponent. I think that's about everything, so let us hop right into the game. So I won the roll-off and chose to go first. Obviously, I just prefer going first these days as a player, and I think that Winter Guard Command often benefits from it because you can get some sweet positioning early on, as well as a lot of extra shooting if your opponent decides to move up basically at all, because you have 14-inch rockets and very long-range rifles, and some mortars, and a bunch of just bombs and guns and shit. So, you know what? Yeah, go first. And Craig, you chose your side. What made you think to choose the side you're on?
Primarily, I like the shape of that forest a bit better. I'm a hyper-aggressive caster, so if I can position things in a way I can actually hyper-aggressive to block line of sight to the entire right-hand side or the left-hand side of the board, I guess it would be camera down. But essentially, I can sort of sneak somebody that way. I have that water that isn't a huge deal for me because my entire list has Pathfinder or Tough other than Typhon and some other things. And, yeah, pretty much the board didn't matter too much to me. I just didn't want that big obstruction.
Fair enough. That makes sense. It really would limit where you can place the Archangel, and it kind of dictates that already by you putting it in the bottom zone. It's a lot more flexible of a piece down there. So I'm still deploying the billion infantry models I have in this list because I have to avoid the obstacle in the middle there, as well as play around the big old train piece. I'm going to use a lot of a trick in this game thanks to that train where I do a lot of CRAs with the rifles, where I lead with the guy in Signs Importance range and combine with some models that are outside of it. It's a great way to get more work out of the list and spread a little bit wider.
Hmm. So my deployment, I'm just sort of deploying fairly centrally, but the list is fairly fast. I can probably rapidly reposition if I need to. The fact I'm going second is actually pretty rough because I can get some threat extended towards me earlier than I would like. So just going to try to mitigate that via deployment.
Sounds good. All right. You're just about done there. I deploy the Widowmaker Marksman fairly centrally. He's not going to be doing a whole lot this game other than trying to hunt down a solo or two, maybe pick off some Pharaoh, but mostly he wants to get rid of that Spell Martyr so that the Scourge Assassination is off the table. I get a bunch of my advanced moves in, and I'm about ready to go here. So, how are we going to do this first turn? Well, the gist of it is we're going to move as many infantry models as we can up the table, get them to where they need to go so that they're not going to be bogged down by terrain, and hopefully do it in such a way that we're not restricting our movement for the next turn. With large infantry lists like Winter Guard Command, you really have to be careful of where you're placing your models, where your important buff units that have to go first are standing, as well as where the units that want to be shooting later in the turn are standing, so that you can move those buff pieces up first without getting them bogged down behind your infantry models. If you haven't played a lot of large infantry-based lists with support pieces like Iona and Holt, with support casters like Vlad, I'd recommend before the game, deploying, moving your models, and just getting the feel of it, seeing where you want to be starting your second turn before you actually get into a game with it, because you're going to be frustrated if you do something like what I am right here and you block your support pieces out of where they want to be on the first turn. So here, you'll see what I do with Iona and Holt. I'm like, I don't want them to get killed by an Archangel immediately. So I'm going to go laterally with them and just throw them in the blob of all this Winter Guard Command chaff so that they don't just die. And Vlad's going to move up and be fairly central, again, in a big blob of Winter Guard. And this really restricts where they can stand the next turn. So you'll want to be a little bit more careful. This is a little bit of some sloppy placement by me. But if you don't do that, you're going to have a lot better of a time. So deploy the list beforehand, move the models, see where you want to be standing. Vlad just walks up and does some wind wall. Not that Craig can really shoot all that much at me this turn, but it's good to get that muscle memory, remember what your spells are and what they do.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to go over to me. I'm looking at the board now. I'm like, so Vlad has his feat, which doubles the speed of his warjacks. So he essentially can threaten something in the neighborhood of 13 inches, 14 inches with boundless charge and feet. So I'm looking at the board here and determining where I can put stuff that would not get them instantly killed. So I operate forward, just looking at that 14 there and like realizing that my Archangel probably doesn't want to get charged by both of the Marauders.
Yeah, Vlad1 brings this interesting dimension to a gun line, where he also just has 3 fairly inexpensive KHADOR heavies that threat so far. Like, they are bullets in and of themselves in this gun line, because they can just shoot up and threat 14 and 15 inches respectively. And that's a little bit atypical for something like a KHADOR heavy. So you have this very aggressive high-damage gun line kind of led by 3 heavy warjacks that are just going to smash whatever they can get into because they out-threat basically everything except maybe Arcadius.
Yeah. So I'm just essentially, I spend a lot of time here sort of debating what my plan is. I want to try to get Wind Ravager from my 1 sorceress into the top zone to try to essentially zone out his Winter Guard from getting into the zone. Because if he's in the zone, then he can't shoot me, is basically the idea there. I'm also determining where I can put Thagrosh. I'm actually capable of being super aggressive with Thagrosh here, despite the large number of guns in Thagrosh's large base, because in the latest CID, he actually picked up Sakpon Lesser Warbeast.
Of which you happen to have a couple and can make more.
Yes. The first time Thagrosh hit by for 5 damage, he spawns another one. So I can put myself in a position like in that rubble there where I'm actually just can't be killed by guns.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying.
And then I'm in the position to actually threaten essentially the zone at that point. So I want to just be as far forward with Thagrosh as possible while also not being reckless with him. Because, again, he can go a billion inches with his jacks. So I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of that. I'm camping enough that if the Spriggan goes in on Thags, I almost certainly live.
Yep.
So
Camping, I think 4 or 5.
Yeah, 4. So like I'm good. The Sorceress walks up, Wind Ravagers. The Rake is also going to move up pretty aggressively there and just essentially be a problem to deal with.
Yeah, this is some pretty great positioning. The Sorceress is up far enough that if I'm more or less in the zone, I can walk a little bit back and get out of it. But if I try to walk into the stealth range of the Rake, I am definitely in Wind Ravager, so I have to kind of compete with those 2 rules, just making that entire zone a problem for me.
Yeah. So that's sort of the idea there. This Rake here is going to go super wide. That Marauder can go kill the Rake, but we'll put him out of position for the rest of the game, so he almost certainly won't go for that. And, yeah, just going to be a thorn in the side later on. The Rakes are essentially, I try to use them as a control element in the list. With the feet and just being able to run 14 inches, they wind up getting into really weird spots with an extra attack. And yeah, so at that point, I'm just positioning very carefully with the Archangel because I don't want to give away a Gargantuan for nothing, is the idea here. So I'm going to position myself in a way that one Marauder can get to me, but not both, just by sheer numbers in terms of threat ranges. So Typhon's going to trample up and throw up excessive healing and just sort of be in an annoying position, essentially forcing Evan to commit to basically one or the other model, because he can't kill both. And yeah, we're just gonna determining the final positioning of it. Because Thagrosh is so far to the side of the board, the Archangel's positioning is super important here because of the control area. So I'm just again being very, very conservative with the super expensive Colossal and not wanting to get the siege weapon Marauders onto him for essentially free.
Yep. No, that's a good thing to not want to have happen.
So yeah, I think I'm going to finally decide to just toss him into that water feature there and just have him be okay with essentially being the second wave. I think Typhon's going to take the first hit, and then the Archangel's going to take the second, just mop up whatever takes out Typhon. The Sorceress and Hellion, the second one down there to provide a free charge for the Archangel later on. And the Pharaoh Valkyries just sort of move up a bit to be 3 shield guards. And yeah, that's basically my positioning for this turn.
Yeah, this is it's fairly rough for me. You've put me in a spot, but I see something that's pretty cute. I can feat and run the Spriggan, and then maybe get behind Thagrosh and bulldoze him. Now, this won't work for a couple reasons. One, I can't quite get far enough behind Thagrosh in order to bulldoze him into the position I want to. And while I'm measuring the 2 inches here, I will later realize I can only bulldoze him 1 inch through the rubble. So he's definitely not going to get to the position that I need him to be in for this to be worth it. Because if I can push him a little bit, I'll push him out of the rubble, so he won't have the cover anymore. So my guns are going to take a bit of a chunk out of him, because he won't have cover or sackpawn likely anymore. And if I can push him far enough, he might actually be in the charge range for another Warjack to go and do a bit of a number on him. Unfortunately, the numbers just don't quite work out, so I'm seeing whether or not the Spriggan can see Typhon. It's pretty close, but we eventually decide that he can. And I think based on those things, including this Warjack on the bottom zone being in range, that I'm going to go after Typhon this turn. I'm not going to bother putting any damage into the Archangel. It's just such high arm with Dragon's Blood, and Typhon's a very good piece to take off of the table, as he has a lot of sprays, and sprays are very good against a lot of infantry, so I don't want him around. And taking a heavy like Typhon off the table early from a list like Craig's means that the hitting power goes down significantly, because you really only have 3 heavy hitters in this list. You have an Archangel, you have Typhon, and you have your Caster. And aside from that, 2 Rakes aren't going to hit too hard, a Seraph's not going to hit that hard, and the rest of your list is more or less support pieces.
Yeah, no, it's true. I have 2 main pieces that don't lose me the game instantly if they die, Typhon and the Archangel. So, like, it was probably greedy of me to put him up that far. I could have potentially moved in such a way that maybe the Spriggan doesn't get onto me.
Maybe.
But it's good that you have to commit heavily to him either. Typhon is not a piece you can afford to undercommit to.
Correct. Typhon is crazy with excessive healing. You have to either... when you're doing the math, you have to take into account the fact that he basically takes 2 damage off of every attack you ever make against him because of excessive healing. So your average roll on dice even of 7 damage is actually only going to do 5. And if you're dice plus, you might as well be doing the dice math at dice even. So if I'm POW 18 and I'm doing 7 damage on average, I'm actually doing 5 on average. And at the end of these attacks, he's basically going to be fully healthy in terms of aspects regardless, because he gets to pick which boxes he heals. So if you don't just kill Typhon, he's going to hit back hard, and you have to commit to him heavily. Because excessive healing is just insane in terms of an Animus. It's like +2 armor, but a little bit better.
Yeah, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse.
Yeah.
But it does get turned off by grievous wounds.
Correct. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that in this list, so I just have to deal with doing KHADOR heavy damage. So, I've realized with Vlad here that I'm in a bit of a pickle because of the things I was talking about earlier. I have moved up a ton of infantry in a blob and have not left a gap for Vlad to properly make it through. So I'm going to have to move this infantry unit first. Thankfully, the Winter Guard infantry unit is the one in the middle, so they're not going to have huge range to any opponents anyways. So I'm going to proxy where Vlad has to go, and I'm going to put a ton of sack pawns in range of him, because I've allocated 1. I'm going to pay 4 for Signs Importance, and I'm going to pay 2 for a Boundless Charge so that the Marauder can actually get in on Typhon. And that's my entire stack, and I'm camping nothing directly across from an Archangel that gets D3+1 shots. So we're just going to make sure that there's more bodies than possible shots for an Archangel around me, and I won't be able to die. It's kind of like casting Windwall, but with corpses.
Pretty much. That's a good way of thinking about it. In terms of my perspective on this one, it also feels okay for me to have 3 rockets essentially be spending their activation running.
Correct. The rockets weren't in range to shoot anything, but they can't go all that much further forward anyways, or else they just die. And they're going to be picked on because Craig knows that under Vlad's Signs Importance, they are the things that do a ridiculous amount of damage, and they're the reason this list is as good as it is, because those things just blow stuff up. So they're going to get targeted. They're going to be shut down. But right now, we're going to show off the heavy warjack portion of this list. So Vlad goes, he feats, he boundless charges, and he casts Signs Importance. And then I decide I'm going to move a couple of these other Winter Guard infantry models. I maybe should have just gone in with the Marauder here first before I moved these Winter Guard infantry models. because that way I could have put them in the line in the way of the Archangel, so the Archangel can't come as far forward. I could have put them in the way of the Rake so that I can screen my rockets better. But we're just going to kind of move around, mosey onto the hill, continue to protect Vlad from a Rake now, and, just continue to be a big infantry blob. So Marauder goes into Typhon. He's going to do his combo smite him into the objective, and do a massive amount of damage on the charge, thankfully. Dice plus 2, I believe, does something around the lines of 14-ish damage, but it's a lot. I take out a good chunk, but now we have to start buying attacks, and these attacks are dice minus 2, which means they're basically only doing 3 damage apiece. So Typhon's still going to be very healthy, and it doesn't help really that Craig has rolled a 3 for every heal here. So I've done probably about 29 to 30 damage, and Craig's healed 10 of that.
Yeah, so
he's basically fine.
Yeah, he's fully functional, but he's definitely feeling it.
Yeah. So now the Spriggan's got to commit his charge attack if I possibly want to kill Typhon here, because the charge attack for the Spriggan gets plus 2 damage, so it goes up to about 20. That'll be dice plus 2. So hopefully it'll do enough damage to cleave out Typhon, and I won't have to worry about him anymore.
So one thing about your feat is it gives you a huge amount of speed, but doesn't actually provide Pathfinder.
Correct. And this turn I decided to give Pathfinder to the Marauder in the just below the objective, because he was directly behind the forest. I thought, if he wants to do anything this turn, he'll have to go through that forest. But I probably should have just put it on the Spriggan, knowing that he can see Typhon is going to do work. This Marauder is not going to trample or anything. He can't get into Typhon, so why bother? But we do make use of the Pathfinder. The Spriggan goes, automatically hits because Typhon's knocked down. Going to do a ton of damage. I don't bother making the shield attack into Typhon because I feel like I'm going to just make him heal more than I do damage. So I don't bother. I make a shield bash attack into, I believe, a Pharaoh.
Yeah.
And then I make my last bot attack with the spear into Typhon. We kind of mess up the order here. I forget that I can dual attack and make some grenade shots. Having to put the Spriggan into Typhon kind of hurts also, because it means I can't use the targeting flares to unstealth the Rake in the top zone, because if I can do that, then I can use the field gun to knock it down, and then I can shoot it with a bunch of rockets, which probably kills it because Rakes don't like getting shot. But I feel like taking Typhon off the table is far more important. Thankfully, I also get a nice blast damage roll onto the Spell Martyr and take it out, because the first one I hit, Craig shield guards it to a Valkyrie, which does, I think, 1 or 2 points of damage. Mm-hmm. And then I miss the second shot, which is actually better for me, because he can't shield guard that somewhere where the blast damage won't hit the Spell Martyr. And Signs of Importance means that the POW 5 blast damage actually kills him.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Which is kind of sad. I wanted to keep Vlad honest.
It's great. No Scourge Assassination anymore. I don't have to worry about that. I just have to worry about regular assassinations.
Yeah, so that's going to do some other work over here with the top zone.
Yes, so I'm taking a look at what I can do with the field gun here. Field gun's just going to walk up, get some line of sight onto the Hellion. I'm way out of Signs of Importance, but I'm lucky, so I hit the Sorceress on Hellion anyway and knock her down. Dice minus 1, I believe, puts 4 more points of damage, so the Sorceress on Hellion is now on, I believe, 3 boxes left. Because I hit her earlier in the turn with a random Winter Guard shot, I believe. I think a rocket blast damage did 1 damage. Because when I moved a bunch of dudes to make the corpse wind wall, we'll call it now, corpse wall, I also shot with a dude.
Makes sense.
So now, the unit of Winter Guard on the top side are going to do the thing we talked about earlier, where we're going to split some dudes up, have a couple of rifles on the top side of the train, have a couple of rifles on the bottom, lead the CRAs with the bottom dudes. I kept most of them out of Wind Ravager, so this is the CRA that's going to ice the Hellion, which means I can shoot with my rockets now. Unfortunately, I only put one of them in range to see the rake, so the other two are just going to take some pot shots at some stuff. Stuff being the Seraph. I believe both of the shots get shield guarded to pigs. One of them misses and one of them gets shield guarded, sorry. So yeah, we do a little bit of damage to the Seraph. With the blast, I believe we do 1 point and then do a little bit of damage to a Valkyrie.
Yeah, I let one shot go through just because I figured that there's not a lot to follow that up.
Yeah.
So it hurts losing Typhon, but feel like the board is not in a bad state for me either.
Correct. I mean, I'm a mainly shooting list, and I didn't do a lot of shooting this turn.
Mm-hmm.
Jozef's going to go up and give tough to the unit that I made the corpse wall with.
It's a smart plan.
Iana and Holt are going to move into a position where they can hopefully get Kiss off on the Archangel next turn. And the Mortar is just going to move up to a spot where it can probably shoot something next turn. And, importantly, that Marauder we talked about earlier, this might seem like I'm just giving Craig a free Marauder, and I, to a point, am. But what I'm also doing is preventing the Archangel from just freely charging in, clearing out the Winter Guard in front of Vlad, and then forcing me to kill it with one Marauder, which odds are not that's not happening. So it keeps the Archangel having to play back farther than it would like to. It can't really shoot Vlad, because if it wants to, it has to take a free strike from a Marauder. So I'm mostly just dictating where the Archangel has to stay this turn with that Marauder. I feel like that's worth it enough, because it means that I'm less likely to lose a huge swath of Winter Guard and have my caster eaten.
Mm-hmm. So this turn, I operate forward with the Seraph. I have the Pharaoh Valkyries Vengeance forward, make an attack on the Marauder with the 1, trying to knock it down with crit knockdown, but no dice and no gang, so it's not going to do a whole ton of extra damage here. Thankfully, because of how the Spriggan had to go in, he now has a back arc facing Thagrosh.
Yes, not good.
So his shield, which he has in one of his arms, won't be giving him an armor bonus, basically.
Yeah, not at all.
So Thagrosh can probably take a pretty decent chunk out of that Spriggan. The Archangel can probably mangle or kill both of those Marauders, and whatever I have left might get mopped up by the feet attack. So I think this turn is basically just kill the remaining things that can kill the Archangel, is essentially my idea here.
And I mean, it's a good plan, because the rest of my list is a ton of guns, which have to stand closer to you, thanks to...
Flying high?
That's the rule.
Yeah, so the -3 range makes positioning a lot more awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'm just going on, like, rocket hunting season.
Yes.
Those rakes, only purpose in life this entire turn is kill that rocket.
Get those wascally wockets.
Yep. So Thagrosh's going in here, Manifest Destiny feat, and just absolutely, like, does bananas damage to that middle Spriggan there.
Yeah, he does pretty all right. He cripples, I think, both arms, and I think the only thing he doesn't cripple, actually, I think is the movement.
Yeah. So I feel okay about that one. I'm on 1 focus at the end of it, or 1 fury at the end of it, because I feel like I want to keep a transfer in case things get weird. But other than that, I will be hanging out with 2 sack pawns this turn. So, and also some shield guards, come to think of it. So Thagrosh remains unassassinatable at range. So yeah, just doing some damage here. Debating on what I actually wanted the disposition of the rest of this turn to look like, where things are going to go, who's going to finish off that Spriggan. These are all questions whose answers I am currently searching for.
Yep. So, Archangel's coming into me, though.
Yep, get the free charge from the result of the Sorceress. Basically needs not really good rolls to hit. And just it's dice off 1 with the bite attack, Manifest Destiny winds up skewing the rolls pretty hard here. So like I wind up doing a pretty substantial amount of work into both of these Marauders. I wind up ripping off the arms of both, I believe.
Yeah, so you rip off both arms, but leave the cortex and movement on the one in the middle zone. And in the one on the bottom zone, you happen to remove the cortex and the right arm. I believe. Yeah. And then, cortex, right arm. That's what you remove.
Yeah, so I feel okay about that one. They can't combo smite me anymore. They're like hitting me with a POW 16, which even with 3 dice isn't going to be doing a ton of work to my Arm 21. So I feel okay about that one. Just, I don't need to kill them. I just need to make sure that they're not going to be super effective.
Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, even, especially with crippled arms, they're just not going to be doing a whole lot. Like, they can barely even hit the Archangel at that point.
Yeah. So I think I have the Pharaoh Valkyries, which can do a surprising amount of damage to heavy warjacks, because they have 2 initials with Gang, with their hammer attack and their point-blank shield gun attack. So they can wind up doing a pretty substantial amount of damage to those 2 heavy warjacks in the zone, essentially here. So I'm just angling these guys to get them at a point where I can wind up getting charges on everybody. It's fairly tight, but it is doable. I charge one fairly wide in order to get Gang on both, and the last one sort of just goes through the center here and does some good work. So the first one is going to go in on the Spriggan and just absolutely trucks the damage roll on it. Also, the Spriggan's almost dead anyway, and the point-blank shot ices it.
Yep. Finishes off the Spriggan. I'm down to 2 very damaged warjacks, and still a ton of Winter Guard, though.
Yeah. And the second one does a bunch more damage to that second Marauder. The Marauder is now effectively harmless. This Seraph's going to go. Debating on where I can put Thagrosh that doesn't necessarily get him killed or charged by Vlad or something. This Rake here is determining what he's going to do. Thinking of doing putting a bunch of attacks into that Marauder, but instead decide to just run him forward so that he can get a feet attack onto those rockets up there.
Yes, this sucks for me at the very least. Yeah. So not only are you just like bypassing the infantry that I had there, because I was like, all right, you're not going to go through the cloud because you can't like charge or get to the rockets from that far away. So you're just going to come kill these rifles. And then you're like, nah, I can run and then feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's less fun. Please don't do that.
Thankfully, Thagrosh's feat allows for a full advance and a melee attack from everybody in his battle group, which is basically the whole list.
Correct.
Of note, the Archangel cannot make the advance, but it can make the attack because nothing prevents a Colossal or Gargantuan from making attacks out of activation. Surprising nobody, the Rake mops up 2 rockets under the effect of Signs of Portents.
Yep, and he's ready to go for the feet too.
Yep.
There's easily going to get into that other rocket there.
Yeah, there's a 3rd rocket that's just ready to get eaten. And also, one of my Harriers frenzied this turn, but thankfully my feat allows it to move later on. So it will provide a valuable sack pawn target to Thagrosh.
Your mysterious solo stick goes. The stick Seraph.
Yeah, because it's almost impossible to play the Seraph with its giant model. It puts a random shot into something, but I kill a rocket. That's what I do with the Seraph.
Yeah, so I believe the rocket kill count this turn is 3 so far.
Correct. Yeah, I wind up just killing 3 rockets. There's 9 of them total. If I can kill or tie up rockets are basically the goal here. I'm using my rakes as sort of like I said, it's almost a pseudo-control mini-feat of I'm going to give you these rakes, but you're going to wind up doing terrible activations in order to get rid of them. So...
terrible activations indeed.
So now that we've mopped up most of that Marauder in the center zone, most of that Marauder in the side there, We're just looking at the board here, and I think that's everybody, so we're just going to move right along to the feet. The Forsaken pulls in some Fury, so I can transfer to the Archangel now. So Thagrosh is just as safe as he always is. And then recognizing that I probably... Oh yeah, here comes the Rake. Rake swings on the rocket and misses. This Rake.
Thankfully, rakes are only mat 6, so even under Manifest Destiny, they can miss sometimes. Or in this case, both times.
Yeah, pretty uninspiring rolls from the Rakes here. Thankfully, Manifest Destiny effectively has a range of table with the Rakes.
Yes, Long Leash is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, so I swing on that Marauder there. I looked at it. One of the Marauders has an arm that I can probably rip off. The other one is going to do nothing. So I wind up...
The one that has an arm dies to
Yeah.
the feet attack. He had 8 boxes left. You just crush it.
So I feel okay now. All the threats of the Archangel are effectively neutralized at this point. All the rockets are tied up or dead, and all the heavy warjacks are going to be doing very little next turn.
All one of them.
Yeah.
You also tie up my little Widowmaker. Thankfully, the Seraph also misses. I say thankfully. It really would have been great if he had just killed that Widowmaker, because then you wouldn't be engaging it.
Yeah. It's sort of in a really aggressive position here in the center of the board where I'm somewhere near defense 20.
Yeah. So, Vlad refills his focus. The Marauder in the zone has his Cortex gone, so he does not get a Cortex focus, or power-up focus, rather. And I have no other Warjacks, so Vlad's just camping it this time around, which is important because he's going to need it. There's a Rake just to his right, and he doesn't like that there. So he's going to go try to kill it. Because he wants the rockets in that unit to the bottom right to be able to go up, get in front of him so he can have more of a corpse wall, and get shooting that Archangel, because it's going to take a couple of turns at this point in order to actually take that thing down.
Yeah. Armor 21 is a huge deal for defensive stats. Ask KHADOR players about how good armor buffs are on their jacks.
So good.
But, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking at the table. I'm like, all right, Vlad, you got to get some work done in melee. So we walk into the back rack of this Rake. I realize that I have both the 1-inch and half-inch, so I tuck in a little tighter. I cast Signs of Importance because I'm hoping that I can kill this Rake and Blood Boon a Wind Wall. And that way I'm safe from shooting, and the models that are going to be in front of me are going to be safe from shooting, and that way Craig has to do some melee work in order to clear out the guys in front of me. So, I missed the first 2 attacks. Not great. Crush the damage on my 2 attacks afterwards. Have 1 focus left. Need to kill this Rake. I only need to do, I believe it's 6 damage at dice -1, so I need to roll a 7 for damage. With Signs of Importance, I roll a 5.
So the Rake is still alive.
Rake is still alive. Vlad does not get to cast Wind Wall for free. And Vlad is empty on focus. Not a great spot for him to be in. But that's okay. We have some other methods of killing this Rake. We can at least get rid of it with Jozef here. He can do his shouts before he charges, so he can shout at the other Winterguard infantry to get Bear's strength. He can then charge this Rake, get into it. He hits with a 9. He crushes the damage roll and just annihilates the Rake from the table. And Joe's celebrating. He's having a good time. So, next up, this unit. We get 3 charges on the Rake, as well as 1 guy who doesn't get the charge bonus, but is just there to make a melee attack. Winterguard infantry are mat 5.
Yes.
So under Signs of Importance, they need a 10.
Yeah, which is still kind of a reach. It's not a huge reach, but it's
a reach.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as it normally would be, but we do pretty well here, I'd say.
Yeah.
First charge attack, just roll that Signs of Importance 10. Roll 14 for damage. It's only dice -2, so that's 12. 8 boxes left on the Rake. Miss. Hit my next charge attack. My last charge attack, that is. And just a straight up kill a Rake with 2 axes from random Winter Guards.
Who needs a Warcaster?
Who needs a Warcaster? The king wearing, or I guess he's just a prince at this point. The prince wearing magic armor with spells and magic swords can't kill one. But just 2 guys with axes with some inspiring speech can. I'm not salty.
Figured still a win. Tied up some rockets.
Yep. So this unit gets to go. They are going to do that CRA trick we talked about earlier. The ones in the Signs of Importance range are going to be leading it. They're just going to take some Harriers off the board because they know shooting Thagrosh means shooting a Harrier anyway. So might as well shoot the ones that are easier to hit.
Yep.
So we shoot 1 Harrier off. Rocket's going to go take a shot at a Harrier. Unfortunately, this one's out of Signs of Importance by a long shot. So he's just going to,
Hope for that 8 action.
hope for that 8. He misses by a lot, and he just scatters it. The damage doesn't do anything to Thagrosh because Thagrosh is a monster. And we continue on with our lives from there. The field gun crew is just going to run to the zone. We've cleared it. We can score it now. Might as well start getting a bit of a scenario lead. The Marauder is going to take some Signs of Importance swings at some Pharaoh here. If either of the dice are a 5, I hit.
He does get a hit in there. And
He does get 1 hit and kills a Pharaoh.
Who does not make her tough.
So, yeah, he killed a model and he has no arms, so that's cool. Ion and Holt are going to now kiss the Archangel, the thing we've wanted to do all game. We walk up, we Zephyr. Great rule for Ion and Holt. They also get Signs of Importance.
Yeah.
And then I go to make Holt shots because I'm 12 inches away.
Yep.
He's out of range because of flying high.
Yep.
Because the first time I go to make a gunshot at the Archangel, I obviously forget that rule exists.
Yep. And
So Holt misses both attacks.
to note, Holt would have been out regardless of how far he moved up.
Correct. I could not have possibly have gotten in range thanks to flying high. However, this entire unit of Winter Guard is going to go get in range of this Archangel that is now Kiss of Lilist and just start shooting.
Yeah, it's like a 2 or 3 turn process here of putting the Archangel down.
Well, it would have been a shorter process had 2 units of rockets not been bogged down. But now I have to bring in the top unit, I have to bring in the middle unit, and now that everything can actually shoot at the Archangel, next turn is when it's likely going to go down from guns.
Mm-hmm. The Mortar walks up, takes a shot at the Archangel, and just shield guide it to the Valkyrie.
Yep.
And then to the other Valkyrie.
Yes. Get it out of anywhere where it's going to do damage to things that are important. Creams the Valkyrie because it is POW 16.
Yep. And does a bit of damage to the objective.
Yep. All right, Craig. It's your turn. What's the plan?
All right, so I'm looking at the board here, and I recognize that Vlad is less than 12 inches away from the Archangel. So I can definitely get the Archangel there distance-wise. I just need to determine what needs to die in order to do so. So I'm checking ranges here. I think at least 1 Winter Guard has to go down, possibly 2. I think the rocket ahead directly in front of him is one that 100% needs to die. And the other one is potentially one on either side needs to go down. I have a couple gunshots here. The Seraph has D3, which is actually just a fancy word for 1. And I have Thagrosh's gunshot and the Pharaoh Valkyrie's shield cannon, which is Rat 6, which is actually not terrible to potentially put a gunshot into things.
Very true. Oh, and with flying high, you can just walk through its base.
Yep. I can have it just walk over there because it's a friendly model.
Yeah.
Just cap something, and
That's neat.
the Archangel can be totally fine with that after the fact. Thagrosh's job is probably going to be to slipstream the Seraph to get it into a position where it can start aiming, and also to put the last couple points of damage into that Marauder that's tenuously hanging on to life in the center zone. You can't see him because the Archangel's there. But
It's true. There's still a Marauder underneath that dragon somewhere.
Yeah. So
We do a bit of proxying so that we can figure out where this Archangel has to go.
yeah. And it winds up being basically I need to remove that one guy. So I have some shots to take out a single Winter Guard.
Yup. Now, again, if Vlad had killed the rake like he was supposed to,
Yeah, then it would have been...
then this guy would have been a windwall.
Yeah, it would have been a much different story.
Much different story. But, alas, we are here. So the Seraph gets...
Gets Apparition and then Slipstream.
Mm-hmm.
And Thagrosh is going to do the, 5 or so damage to the...
Marauder here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also do the Vengeance with the Valkyrie.
Yeah, and also put in some damage from the Forsaken. Who is
Right. The Forsaken goes and charges and buys deck. I mean, it's really hard to remember all of this when you can't see it happening because of the Archangel's damn wings.
Yeah. They are magnetized.
They're...
That's the only way to transport the thing.
It's true.
So yeah, basically Thagrosh is going to go in there and just absolutely just finish the poor Marauder. And move the Seraph over. Now the Seraph can go and just want to make sure that I didn't put the Seraph stupidly in a place where the Archangel can now no longer land where he wants to be.
You didn't. You're good, though. You're good. Barely, but you did it.
Yep. So just going to make sure that happens. So the Seraph goes, rolls 2 shots, caps the Winter Guard, and I'm like, I'm just going to flare Vlad. And then I realize that he has infinite shield guards near him. So
Roughly infinite sack pawns.
yeah. So figure there's no earthly way I can get flare on him. So that's sad. But alas. Potentially looking at angles for maybe shooting Iona and not getting shot by Holt as a result of quick draw because of the forest, but decide against it. This is really the Archangel's show. So he's going to get that free charge on Vlad as a result of Sorceress on Hellion. And I need a 9 here, which under Manifest Destiny is a bit of a reach. So I'm going to boost a hit, the charge attack. And wind up doing I hit the 9. And
You do 15 damage, leaving Vlad on 3 boxes. Every one of your attacks is dice plus, so rolling dub ones with any of them will still kill him. So you hit with your second attack and obliterate Vlad from existence.
but I didn't get to consume you.
Yes.
But yeah, that was basically that matchup. I wanted to sort of get Vlad when he extended forward. I wanted to get him at that point rather than try to play the long game of Vlad's magic guns that do a bizarre amount of damage.
Yeah, we looked at it a little bit afterwards, and what I could have done about that rake. We're measuring here actually. Could Iona and Holt have gotten to that rake? Probably. If Vlad signs importance and just walks away, then I can cover more of the top zone, and then I can clear some Winter Guard models out of the way. Walk Iona and Holt into melee with the rake. Holt gets to make 4 attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And Iona can just kiss the rake, because honestly, kissing the Archangel didn't do a whole lot for me. So if I kiss the rake instead, I just wipe it off the table, no problem, with Holt probably, because he's Rat 8, so he hits with Signs of Importance fairly reliably. Then he's dice even with his guns, and then after that he gets his gun blade attacks to just finish off the last couple points of damage. So that would have probably kept Vlad a lot more safe. And then from there, I can continue to just pick pieces off the table with the gunshots I do, and that way, again, the charges still happen on the rake from the middle unit. Kovnik Joe could probably even go and charge it himself a little bit. Probably could have done a little bit better job of protecting Vlad on that last turn. I definitely got a little bit tunnel visioned with him going Signs Importancing and getting to cast Windfall for free, because Blood Boon is a cool rule. But yeah, that is about it for us, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching this on Patreon, thanks for supporting us. If you're not, maybe consider it. If you can't afford it, obviously, no worries there. And yeah. We'll see you next Monday.